Hey there, this is David Perdue from MyNav.com and the Knowledge Advanced Marketing System. And we are at the NAMS 13 workshop venue at the hotel. And so I've kind of got my computer here on my lap, and believe it or not, Kurt Scholey is in the same room. Say hello, Kurt. For the workshop, and we're doing the event, and we're going to finish a hangout that we tried to do last week, and it turned out that Webinar Jam was having issues that day, and we could not get through, although we spent an entire hour trying to figure it out. And now we're going to go ahead and complete what we were doing last week today. Kurt is going to talk today about 5 ways to make your website more profitable. Kurt is known as the website ROI guy. So I'm really glad to have Kurt on here because he's a wealth of knowledge, and he's also one of the kindest and most helpful guys I've ever met. No, I'm not. God, you scared me to death. He's been one of those guys who has really helped us out a lot in the workshop, and I really appreciate that until just now. So, Kurt, you got some stuff to show us and talk to us about, so I'm going to put this over on you and go mute, okay?
All right, well, can you hear me now? Thanks, David, for allowing me to come on. NAMS is just wonderful. I've been coming here for, I think, 5 years now, and it's more than just a conference. It is truly a unique experience, people who are talking about websites and website success. For a lot of people who are small and mid-sized marketers. And so I put this together. I've done some work with clients over the years that have some pretty significant websites. The Chicago Architecture Foundation gets 1 million visitors a year. I've done work for Sprint. I did Benny's Beverage Depot in Chicago, which is a big liquor store chain. Chicago White Metal, hotels, convention and visitors bureaus. I have a lot of eye doctors. And I've worked with a lot of much smaller people too. My background really is in radio. I've worked in radio for almost 25 years and got started marketing websites back in about 1995. I'm a speaker and seminar leader, and I'm very happy to be here. So for people who have websites and they're having some problems with their website, let me ask you this. What's your problem? What is the problem that you are having with your website right now? We may be able to fix it for you sometime in the next hour that we have here. But I will tell you this, a lot of people who I interview with, and this information came from a magazine, and forgive me, I don't remember exactly which one it was, but you know, it comes down to sales, right? All websites have a job, I like to say, and many times the job of the website is to sell something. Sometimes there are some interim jobs that you have to do with a website, and each page of a website has a job, and it's usually to support the overall goals of the website. So a lot of times you're not getting enough sales because you're not getting enough visitors to your website. I have some ideas for you today. Sometimes it's a lack of engagement with prospects. You know, you don't have the ability to talk to people enough to really find out what they're looking for to having any kind of engagement. Sometimes it's not being able to update content. Just because you wrote it a month ago or a year ago or, you know, or even yesterday doesn't mean it's the best content. So you want to be able to go in there and change your content so that you can improve conversion. So it may be your messaging as it comes across with text, it may be images, and it also may be videos. And the other thing that owners and managers complain about quite a bit is that they just are not able to update their site or finding a good web designer. So it comes down to skills and time and costs. Now, it's also useful to know what visitors are complaining about, right? They're talking about websites that are too slow. They can't find what they're looking for. You know, when you come to a website, you can't push a user's guide through the web through the internet for them, right? They need to find what they're looking for, and in many cases they can't find it on sites that are set up and are kind of confusing. They'll say things like it's too hard to read, and that could be any number of things. It could be the font, it could be the fact that there's 6 million words on the page. It's just very hard to read, rather than chunking content so it's a little bit easier. And we're going to talk about a great way to lay out content on your website here in just a little bit. They'll say it's awful to view on my iPhone or my smartphone or my tablet. And nowadays, it's very important to have a website that is mobile ready or responsive so that people can see those websites on mobile devices, especially if it's somebody who has a local business of some sort. And it looks like the first website ever made. And then the sixth biggest complaint is they'll say that it lacks the information that I'm looking for. So PC Magazine recently went out and interviewed 1,500 consumers and found that about 7 in 10 of the people who visit websites say that they are regularly inconvenienced by faulty websites. Now, this is going to have a huge impact on how well your website converts for you. Further, 6 out of 10, or 59% of respondents, said that they see large variations in the reliability of websites which they use. So that's something that you need to fix, something that you need to be thinking about, something that you need to be monitoring. So slow running websites, about 71%. Sites that are down for maintenance, can you believe it? Some people say as many as half of the sites that they look at are down for maintenance. Or broken links on the site. Right? So if you're linking to your offer or some other awesome page content, if 44% of them can't find that link, then you got a problem. And then online orders that freeze. And we see this a lot with all kinds of e-commerce, whether it's a simple PayPal checkout, or it's something that's going through Google or any of the other ways. Websites don't sell. And I've found companies that have come in and said, we've never been able to sell anything on the website. And I'll say, well, have you ever bought anything from yourself on the website? And they'll say, well, no, why would we do that? Well, to test out your system. And then you find out that there's something wrong with the funnel. So wouldn't you like to know that? And maybe if you fix that, you have a website that's going to be more profitable and probably easier to manage. So how do you fix that? Google and Bing will give you information that will help you determine what the problem is. Webmaster Tools by Google or Bing or even Yahoo are ways for you to communicate with the search engines. They'll tell you if they have a problem with your sitemap or they don't think things are linking. So one of the things that I would urge all website owners and managers to do right away is to, at the very least, set up a Google Webmaster Tools account and see what's going on. We could probably talk just about Google and Bing Webmaster Tools for an hour one of these days because of the rich information that you can get out of that, and it'll tell you what's going on. Use your own website, right? Fill out the forms on your site, opt into your own list, buy something from yourself, and then you can also refund stuff too. So you should know about that. You don't want to have clients who are upset because they can't get a refund from you. Invite people to come in and watch as they use your site, right? That's very important. What is confusing to them? It isn't always what's important to one person. I would look at things that are important to a number of people. And I just had this conversation with a client the other day where they had an opinion about their homepage on their website. And I said, look at Google Analytics. You've got some really good key performance indicators here. Your bounce rate, which is the percentage of people who are visiting the site, is pretty low. So that means they're kind of digging your content. They're spending a fair amount of time on the site. I don't think there's anything wrong with your site. You're looking pretty good. But you need to know this, right? If you have QuickBooks set up, that gives you a guide to the health of your company. There are other ways that you can sort of manage the metrics and see if there are things that need to be fixed. And you can look at these things overall for a website, and then you can also drill down and say, this page seems to be a problem, and you can look at the information that you get out of Google Analytics and Google Webmaster Tools and see what you might do to make that change. So I like to say that for a long time I've said there are two keys to website success. There are many keys to website success. The two that are most important are getting traffic or visitors to your website, and then the second thing is to convert that traffic to prospects, to buyers. And maybe even more importantly, evangelists. So if that website is not converting, if your e-commerce is not working, if they have broken links on the website, you're not converting that traffic. So you could have 6 million people coming to your website, but you're not going to sell anything because you don't have the conversion set up. So that's the first thing that I would fix. Then I would start working on getting traffic to the website. Then look at your numbers. And you can say at some point, you know what, if I doubled my traffic, I might very well double my sales. Or if I can figure out how to double the conversion rate from 1% or 2% to 5%, then you can double your business that way. And then if you combine the two together, then you're in nirvana. The third thing that I like to mention nowadays is to make sure that your website is mobile friendly, which is also known as responsive, because 50% of the traffic going to websites today is mobile traffic. And again, this is even much more important for people who have brick and mortar locations, because people may be out in their car, checking their tablet, and checking their smartphone, their iPad, something like that, to find goods and services. And this is easily fixed, especially if you're on WordPress, because you can change to a theme that is responsive. And by the way, one of the things you can do, I don't remember the exact link, but if you Google the word Screenfly, it'll take you to a website where you can key in your website address, and it will show you what your website looks like on any mobile device. So you can look at it on a couple of different flavors of iPhones. You can look at it on a couple of different flavors of iPad, smartphone, BlackBerry, Blueberry, Strawberry, whatever device you want to look at. And that can sometimes be very interesting. I was talking to a guy and I said, your website doesn't look very good on a mobile device. And I sent him the link, the Screenfly link, and he wrote back and he said, well, you can only see a third of my website. And I said, exactly. That's part of the problem. So what we're talking about in this webinar today is 5 ways to make any website, to make your website profitable and easier to manage. There are 5 things that I think website owners and managers need to do. Number 1 is they need to take charge. A lot of website owners and managers don't have any idea how to manage their website or what to do. And there's just a couple of things that you need to do to get started so that you are in control and that you are responsible for that asset. Your website is an asset as much as a brick and mortar location if you have one. Take a little sip. The other thing is the content has a big impact on the conversion that you have on the website. If you're not resonating with the people who are visiting your website, you're not going to sell them anything. They're not going to sign up for an email list. They're not going to create any kind of buzz and tell other people about your website. It's critically important. Also, traffic. We just talked about the 2 most important things, the conversion on your website and the traffic. So we're going to talk a little bit about traffic. And then conversion. And like the content conversion that we've been talking about, I've got a couple of ideas for you that will help conversion. And then the other thing for a lot of website developers or owners and managers is getting it done. And in fact, there's sometimes where I'll say, even if you think you know WordPress pretty well, it might not be a bad idea to bring somebody in who knows it better. But I can also teach you, how to get it done and get it done better. I have a course, a website success course, and I say to somebody, even if you think you know Photoshop, you don't do it on a regular basis. Get a pro to do it and get somebody to do it affordably, and you'll thank me later. And in fact, David, you've even said things like that to me over the last couple of years in terms of the importance of being able to, get somebody else to do it, to delegate. All right, so number 1.
I don't do anything anymore.
You what?
I don't do anything anymore.
I know. That's why we're all here, helping. We're at the NAMS conference, by the way, twice a year. Best part of life. Come here to NAMS. So the number 1 thing is take charge of your website. It is amazing to me how many people do not know how to protect their asset. Where is the domain registered? Who is the contact? when does the domain come up for renewal? I get called several times a year by people who say, my website's down and somebody says that you might be able to help me. And it's pretty quick. You can find out pretty quick what the problem is, and that is the domain registration is passed. So mark it down on your calendar when it's coming up for renewal. Make sure you renew it a month in advance. I look at my websites every year, whether I've paid for them for years on out, just to be safe, right? I don't want to go through that and have a website go down and then find out that some other enterprising young punk has registered my website and I can have it for the low price of $500 or $2,000. That's never happened to you, David, has it?
Never.
Yeah, never. So where's your site hosted? Who is the contact? How do you pay for it? Again, we have people with websites that go down and they'll say, and then we'll find out from the hosting company that they haven't paid the bill, and then the guy will say, well, my office manager, she was responsible for that, and she left on to find another job, or whatever reason that she had, and so she or he was keeping track of that and making sure that the bills get paid. You need to own that asset. You need to make sure that your domain name is registered. You need to make sure that your web hosting is paid. How do you access the site? Sometimes it's through a control panel. Sometimes it's through file transfer protocol, or FTP. WordPress is pretty simple. So you really need to know how to access the site. A lot of sites never get updated simply because nobody there knows how to access the site. And if you're not accessing it yourself, and I would still say that you should have all of those launch codes, I call them, you need to find out who's been doing that. And if they're still accessible, if something goes wrong, you want to be able to contact them. And then also the other thing that's really kind of important is, how do you do email administration? How do you add or delete accounts? And let me say this, don't ever just delete somebody's account because somebody else that they've been dealing with may have bookmarked it, and if they send an email and it gets bounced, that's a big problem. So if somebody does leave your company, I would strongly urge you to have that account, that email account, either checked by somebody, or maybe even better yet, to have it alias to whoever that person's replacement is, or maybe that person's direct report, or whoever was responsible for that particular individual. So number one, take charge of your website. Number two is the content. People will leave websites within 5 to 8 seconds. A lot of people think that people will sit there and look at it for a while, and I just can't understand why people are not buying stuff from me, why they're not sending me emails, why they're not calling me on the phone. The simple truth is that most people come to a website and they scan it, and they make a value judgment within 5 to 8 seconds. So they also can't read the website. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But they need to get a confirmation that this is a website that's interesting to me, that this may be the solution that I'm looking for. If I wasn't looking for a particular solution, that it's still something of interest to me. Now, video can also be a great content on a website. A lot of people love to consume their content through video. So you should really be thinking about doing that using video. Stories on your website, also some people will say case studies, and how-to kinds of content are really effective. If you're selling information, you don't necessarily want to tell people how to do something. You might want to tell them what to do, and then they can hire you to actually do it for them, or they can hire your product to improve the situation. But you should always be striving to teach, empower, and support the people who come to your website, because they will appreciate that. Don't get too salesy. Help people out, and business will come to you in droves. So here's my content outline exercise. a lot of people will write War and Peace on a page, and I'll say, you got to figure out how to say that in half the number of words. And the other thing is images can help tell a story without a lot of words. So an image, a couple of great headlines, maybe some bullet points is a great way for somebody who's visiting a website, and it may be your home page or their landing page may be an internal page, depending on how they got it. But start with a headline that speaks to them. A lot of times a question can be very good content in a headline. And then write a short paragraph. Usually it's not more than a couple of sentences long, and three if needed, or if the sentences are really short. Write at an 8th grade level, by the way, so don't get too technical. And usually that short paragraph is no more than 3 or 4 lines. Then make several bullet points using a bullet list. A list of benefits is a good start. I would think in terms of benefits to your prospect or your customer rather than features. They're looking for their solution, so always be thinking about what's in it for them. There's an old marketing saying, David, I think you've probably heard this before, where they say features tell, benefits sell. Have you ever heard that?
Oh yeah, I've heard that. Use it all the time.
And I think that's important, right? A lot of people will say, well, I know this is important, Kurt. I've been in this business for 20 years, and believe me, this is what they need. And it's not what they're looking for. So they land on the website, and in 5 to 8 seconds, they make a value judgment. And they say, no, this is not what I'm looking for. So make this content clean, concise, make it attractive, make it something that people like, and make it scannable. So then there's another subheadline maybe on the page. So a good exercise is to come in and say, okay, that's great. How can I cut it in half, and then maybe cut the content in half again? But use this chunking idea of using a headline, a subheadline, some bullet points, and some short paragraphs. This is called a dual readership path. There's some people who scan a website, and there's some people who will read every single word on the website. So you have to have information that will resonate with both of your audience. So here's a few copy tips. Make sure that your content is about the reader. They don't care about us. Features tell, benefits sell. But the most important thing to them are the results. So you need to get them to believe that you have the solution, whether it's a product or a service, that is going to get them the results that they are looking for. Use magic words, and we'll talk a little bit more about this in a minute or two, but words like so you can, so like, so you can reach the goals, so you can find out what you're looking for. Use words that persuade people or that will convey something about scarcity, right? So here are the 5 most persuasive words in the advertising community, arguably. There are other people who will probably tell you that there's 1 or 2 others, or that 1 or 2 of these need to change. But the words you, free, because, instantly, and new are pretty effective when you use them in calls to action, headlines, email subject lines, headings of pages, opening sentences, and paragraphs, right? So always be looking not only at the content for your website, but what other people are getting from you, maybe in terms of autoresponders in an email. 5 magic words. You can buy books on Amazon and different places that actually have many, many, many more lists of words that will help you convert your content. This is hugely important if you're going to convert the traffic that is coming to your website, to get them to do what you want. The ultimate goal may be to buy something, but there may be an interim goal that is as simple as signing up for your newsletter, filling out a needs analysis, picking up the phone and calling, or sending an email. You, free, because, instantly, and new. David Ogilvy is very popular and well-respected marketer who died 20 or 30 years ago. But this was his list of the 20 most influential words. And if you study his writing, and I would urge you to study copywriters, and you'll get a chance to meet them here at the NAMS conference, but these were his 20 most influential words. You can see them here. I'm not going to read all of them, but we're announcing, we're introducing, we have something that's an improvement. It's truly remarkable. It's revolutionary. Compare this product with something else. I challenge you to find something better. This is a great offer. This is truly a miracle. And you can use that in headlines, you can use that in email, you can use it in the content that you're putting forth within the page. So cause and effect words, right? So a lot of times when you're making a statement, then you want to be able to say, and as a result of what we've done, there's a big benefit here for you. Because of this, um, our advantage is caused by, or consequently what we found was, or consequently what our clients found was, or due to the fact that a big competitor went out of business or something or other, for this reason, right? These are words that are really effective when you're using them in closing paragraphs or in some sort of transition. Cause and effect words. There's a lot more that we could talk about with copywriting, but if you just employ some of these new things that we've been talking about, then I think you're going to have a much better and higher conversion on your website. Using techniques that promote exclusivity or social pressure, right? It's members only. A login is required. Ask for an invitation. Be one of the few. Get it before anybody else. It's only available to certain subscribers. So you use these on sign-up forms, links, calls to action, and subheadlines. So I would challenge you to take some of these words and some of these ideas and put them to place in some of the content that you have. Look at headlines, look at subheadlines, right? Write better, more attractive content. And a lot of times that does start with having an engaging or interesting headline. We'll get to that in a minute. So avoid skepticism head on. In fact, a lot of copywriters will say pick 2, 3, 5, 10 things that people are going to question about your offer, and then to address those in the content that you have. You can go back and rewrite things. And so you can do this too. There's a couple of good approaches. One is by saying, well, all right, so you might be wondering. This is it's actually called the you might be wondering pattern of copywriting. That's a good place. Once you've made your case, then you might be looking at addressing skepticism by using that. Or you can come back and you can say something like, well, I know how you feel. A lot of our clients felt a certain way about something, but what they found was, right? So that takes them from their feeling right now of some kind of an anxiety or doubt, and showing them sort of with a case study what somebody felt and then what they eventually found, what is in that pattern. So tell them what to do next. That's the other thing. Every web page should have a call to action. What do you want the reader to do on every page? You don't want them just to sit there and go, oh, well, that was interesting. You want them to do something. Fill out a form, contact you, buy something from you. All right, let's move on to headlines. Headlines are real attention grabbers. And we're spending a lot of time on copy because it's very important for attracting people. Do you think the New York Post sold a lot of papers this day, David, with a headline, headless body in a topless bar? And I'm not saying you should do something like this, and I'm not saying that it needs to be tabloidy, but this is just an example, I'm sure, of how somebody got grabbed with this headline and decided that they wanted to buy the paper and find out what what the story was all about. I used to love the headlines that Leno would have on the Tonight Show. In fact, I think this was one of them. And if you sit here and look at this, finally you realize that this headline is really kind of funny or kind of kind of interesting. I see you smiling over there.
I was journalism school. I was a journalism graduate many years ago, and we used to study the tabloids and the women's magazines particularly, and People for great headlines.
I've got a lesson on women's magazines for you here in just a moment or so. This is probably another one of Jay Leno's headlines. Most doctors agree that breathing regularly is good for you. I don't know about you, David, but I kind of dig it.
I don't do that.
No, you drink coffee. So sometimes it's not just the headline. Sometimes it's the headline and the other imagery on a web page, or in this case, a magazine. I would imagine that the New York Post sold a number of magazines right after that whole big scandal erupted with Tiger and the golf club and something along those lines. So it attracts attention. But we can go back to traditional headlines and traditional advertising and traditional content. In fact, here's an example from before there actually was an internet. This is considered one of the best direct mail pieces or the best content pieces that was ever put together. It was put together by a world-class copywriter by the name of John Caples. Did you ever study him at all?
A little bit, but not a lot. But this headline is just one of those classic headlines. And to tell the truth, I never really got this headline, but I understand. I see variations of it all the time. So it doesn't matter whether I understand it or not. It's about the testing of these things that really matters.
Well, I think this is actually 87 or 89 years old, and it still is a technique that is being used. And I think part of it is that there are a lot of people who genuinely wanted to play the piano, but they were afraid that they would be ostracized somehow, that people wouldn't appreciate it. So they laughed when I sat down at the piano, but when I started to play. We can't read the other content in here, but I would invite you to find this online and look at the other content that they have and look at the headlines and the subheadlines. Then I started to play a complete triumph, right? So here's social proof. I bought this thing and I became socially more accepted or I was able to accomplish something else. So study the copywriters. There's books that you can do, but the important thing is that the content that you share with people, whether it's images or headlines or text or video or audio or any other content that you can think of, is really very important. So here's another example that I want to give you. ABC News had a story about a man at the Mall of America, and their headline was "Man Cited for Tossing Cash at the Mall of America." Now that's kind of interesting. What's that all about? But when they changed it to "This guy got in trouble for what he did at the mall, but everyone there loved it," right? So be thinking about how you can beat your bogey, if you will. So write a headline and then always be thinking about how can you make it more engaging to somebody? How can you make them really want to uh, read the piece and engage that particular web page? So you're talking about women's headlines. There are four headlines on this screen, this slide, David. Two of them were actually in Cosmopolitan. I know people who take pictures of the cover of Cosmopolitan magazine because of the headlines. Some of the best headline writers in the world are in Cosmopolitan.
And they're almost always the same every month, just different flavors on the same topics. It's amazing.
Have you ever taken a Cosmo headline and turned it into something else?
Oh yeah, of course, absolutely.
I'd like to hear more about that, actually. So you've probably seen this like every other month in Cosmo, 10 things that drive him wild in bed. Well, that can be changed to 10 things that make your website visitors buy with delight, or 10 things that will make your neighbors jealous, or 10 things that will allow you to achieve whatever solution it is that you're looking for.
10 things that drive your visitors nuts. 10 things that make your visitors want what you've got. 10. It's just, you can go on forever with these things.
And what you're talking about too are actually very simple. They're not long and drawn out. It gets the point across very quickly, and somebody wants to, that they resonate with that
And anytime I see a list of something, I always want to know what it is, even if it's celebrity stuff or whatever. So it's really important to get that number in.
This headline actually appeared in Cosmopolitan. What your vajayjay is dying to tell you. So that could be turned into what your customers are dying to tell you, what your husband's dying to tell you, what your kids are need most from you, right? So study that stuff. If you're in the website business, you should always be looking at ways. Marketers have swipe files. My wife actually asked me the other day, what's a swipe file? And so if you like a direct mail piece, if you like something that you see on a website, you don't want to copy it directly, but you want to use it for inspiration. You can use something like Evernote, for instance. I was teaching some of my meetup group members the other day that you can clip web pages using Evernote and then go back for inspiration. So you have some sort of a swipe file. Content is really important. There is no new content. You're not going to write anything better that's ever been written before, but you take things. It's like movie scripts, isn't it? Aren't there like 12 or 14 standard movies
Yeah, so that's like the
stories?
hero's journey. The hero's journey
Yeah,
is the
yeah, yeah,
thing behind everybody, right? It's
yeah, yeah,
behind every story is the hero's journey.
yeah. And there was a comparison of Star Wars. Was it Star
It's
Wars to Harry Potter?
yeah, typical hero's journey, all of it.
Yeah, yeah. So we should talk about that sometime. That would be a
Absolutely, I love the hero's journey.
great thing to talk about on the weekly training. All right, number three that we talked about is getting traffic to your website. I think there's about three different ways. You can pay for traffic, and this is increasingly becoming my favorite way of getting traffic to a website. It's getting harder and harder, I think, with search engine optimization, with the changes that Google is making. And I might actually agree with those because they're trying to serve their audience, which is the people who are using their search engines to find information and not necessarily help out somebody who's trying to, you know, uh, game the system a little bit.
Well, but the other thing about paid traffic is it is the best targeting engine available these days. So, being able to target
Sure.
specifically is so important.
Well, there are different ways you can do it. So you can use Google AdWords, you can use their content network, Facebook ads, phenomenal. I think you've talked about Facebook ads in the past and being able to target people by interest, by gender, by age, by location. You did an outstanding weekly live training with John Cornetta last year, I think, when he was talking about building traffic, actually building his email list using solo ads, which are getting people who have email lists to email out to their clients. Matt Basak, who's been at NAMS a couple of times, very good at that. Newsletter banners, directories, setting up joint ventures or affiliate partnerships. That gets talked about a lot at NAMS. It's very important. And you talk a lot about paid traffic on the weekly training as well. So free traffic comes from search engine optimization, content marketing, using Pinterest, which can be a big referrer of traffic, using LinkedIn, either the content you post on LinkedIn or ads, could be up there in the paid thing, using social media like Twitter or Facebook, or any of the others, Tumblr, Reddit, guest posting on blogs. There are all kinds of ways that you can get out in front of people. It's important to understand, though, who your target audience is. There's almost always one for every website, and you need to find out what solutions they're looking for and where they're hanging out. Because if you're advertising or trying to reach out to them in a place where they're not hanging out, guess what? You're not going to have anybody coming in. The third one is don't write off offline, especially if you have a local business. So networking with the chamber, writing for a local newspaper or magazine, attending meetups, or even hosting them can be great ways of finding traffic and getting traffic to a website. So hang out where your readers and prospects hang out. What blogs are they reading? What Facebook groups do they belong to? What magazines do they read? What TV shows maybe do they watch? Gives you an idea. With Facebook, by the way, you can do a graph search. So if you go to that big long white search bar at the top of the page, and I think this has finally been rolled out to everybody on Facebook, but look at pages that are liked by people who like a certain fan page. It's amazing. You can look at your audience and figure out what their interests are. And if you don't like what your audience is looking at, then you have a big problem on your hand. But you can also look, I mean, it's true, but you can also look at what people who, pages like by people who like your competitor and find out the interests that they have. That can give you some ideas for content. It can give you some ideas for strategy. You can do a lot. Create content, guest posting, blog commenting, ask and answer questions in Facebook groups or in some of the answer sites. Those are all ways that you can begin to build an audience who will find you back to where things are. Get comfortable with Google Plus. I've tried really, 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 really hard to get my meetup group members and some others to get comfortable with Google Plus, and it's just not happening to any great extent. And now we just found out that Google Plus is making some changes, so that may be a little bit of a challenge. We're not going to talk a lot about Pinterest. That's probably a whole another week of discussion, but Pinterest is one of the top referrers of traffic to websites. And basically what you do is adding a Pinterest button or a widget to your website, and then pin content, usually a graphic of some sort, an Instagram, something along those lines, that people will put in their collection, in their collection box of interests, and then they have links that go back to the website. That can be a free and very effective way to get traffic to a website. So pin your content. Article marketing, not as effective as it once was, but I think there's still an advantage to that. And you've seen a lot of people over the years who've sort of alternated or moved on with the types of marketing that they're doing. Communities are really important. Again, what I was talking about earlier, where do your target people hang out? What YouTube videos are they watching? Can you create videos that people will find and then have a link back to your website? I think it's a lot easier nowadays to be active in a community where people are actually looking for information than by trying to put together a blog post of some sort that would attract content to a website. So optimize your videos, include transcripts, link back to your website, build YouTube channels. Facebook fan pages and public or private groups are a great place to find like-minded individuals who might be interested in you. LinkedIn groups, create a group around a particular interest, not your company. You can manage up to 50 LinkedIn groups, and I know a guy who was talking about wealth management, and so he had subgroups. His group was wealth management, but then he had subgroups like wealth management for entrepreneurs, wealth management for dentists, wealth management for doctors or lawyers or people who might need some wealth management. But one of the things that's really cool about that is that you can email that group as the organizer. And I get people who say all the time, "Oh, I'm active on LinkedIn all the time." But if you're actually running the group, then you have the ability to email that group one time a week. And the beauty of that is the people who are on LinkedIn have used their real email, not a throwaway. So that can be really effective to get right through to the right inbox of the right people. And also you're not going through gatekeepers if you're trying to call or do something like that. So go to conferences, chamber functions, meetups, but hang out in the communities where your target audience is, and you'll find out more about what they're looking for, more about what they like and don't like, but also you have more of an opportunity to sort of build your brand a little bit in those particular communities. Facebook ads can be really, really effective. There used to be, I think, 19 different ways that you could advertise using Facebook ads. They have narrowed it down now to 8 different ways. You can click right to a website. There's a better strategy, though, and that is to create a list on Facebook and then give them something of value. So it could be a webinar like this one, or it could be a video or a series of videos. It could be a course that's delivered by an email autoresponder, something along those lines. It really gives you an opportunity to engage people. Building a list is one of the most important things, I think, with an effective website, is being able to go out and email to people on a regular basis, and rather than getting them to try and remember to come back to the website. If you can send them an email that piques their curiosity and interest, I think you're pretty good. But you can use Facebook ads, for improving a page post that you have, or a group or a fan page that you have, clicking onto a website, and then having special offers or setting up different events. So these are some of the screens that you see when you get it started. The one thing that I will tell you is that you need to experiment with this, and you need to test it. And the beauty of Facebook is, for $5 or $10, you can test a campaign, you can test an ad, and see how effective it is. Don't feel like you have to spend $100 a week or a day or $700. A lot of times you can put an ad together pretty easily with their easy ad builder, and then test the ad and see how it works out. Great audience targeting. We did something a few months ago where we targeted women in Louisiana who were between a certain age, had an affinity for chocolate, and I think there was some other interest, right? So how can you drill down that far to people who have various interests?
Most women have an affinity for chocolate. Most men too.
That might have been actually a bad example, but there's three big data providers that have I think 550 different interests, and you can actually mix and match these and do a couple of different things. So the example that we were using was just to boil it down, just to uh, see, and so you could narrow down by demographic, or once you tune up the Louisiana audience targeting, you could target a couple of other different states. But from a paid standpoint, getting traffic, one of the big success stories of a website is doing paid advertising. I think Facebook is one of the great ways to go. Here we go, bid management, $5 a day, $10 a day, run it for a few days and see how well it works for you. And so you're really not um, out much money, and you might find a significant return. A lot of times what people will say is spend a buck to make $2. Number four is conversion. So you want to define the outcomes that you want for each of your personas. That could be a sale, obviously, downloading, filling a form, email, making a phone call. Make your calls to action apparent. Content counts. You want to persuade and seduce people a little bit. Make your calls to action pop. Calls to action need to be apparent. Here's an example from a website that I worked on where the call to action was really pretty minimal down at the bottom of the page. People had to scroll down to find the buy button. So one of the things that we did was we moved the buy button up above the fold, and we made it much more apparent. We don't have a lot of time to talk about this, but this is a Belcher button, and it's based on a lot of research from a really smart guy named Perry Belcher. Do you know him?
I've never met him personally, but I do know him and I followed his stuff.
And so he's analyzed a lot of buttons, buy buttons that improve conversion. And if you Google Belcher button generator, you can go to a page that will actually generate this graphic for you. So you can change the get started today headline to something else, add to cart something else. You can change the credit cards that you access. But this is really effective, and so I would make your call to action much more apparent. Look at what you're doing right now. Trust marks can help with conversion, right? So everybody knows PayPal, VeriSign. In fact, VeriSign, PayPal, and Business Bureau accredited business are three of the trust marks that convert highly. But even something like this will help you with cart abandonment. A lot of people will look at this and say, because they're concerned, right? Do they use their credit card and make the buy, or don't they do that?
I've heard of conversion improvements on Better Business Bureau for like 25%. I mean, it's just crazy how much you can get out of that.
So another thing that you can do is you can add different calls to action throughout your website. It doesn't have to be a buy button at the bottom of the page. You can, essentially say, yeah, look, I'm ready. Let me buy. Where do I buy? Where do I sign up? So I've actually done that on my course that I sell, is to say, yes, I'm ready. You've convinced me, buy the thing. So getting it done. This is really important, and we're down to about we only have 20 or 30 minutes left in this webinar.
Ha!
But this is one of the big problems that website owners have, and that is getting it done. VAs are helpful, but you will not find a single VA that has all of the skills that you need. So we see a lot of people, and you can meet a lot of them here at the NAMS conference, who have different skills. And so somebody might have 2 or 3 people that they use to get the job done. 99 Designs has been a good website for design. The model is changing. It's getting a little more expensive. You get stuff done on Fiverr that's usually pretty simple for low-cost jobs, but then you can go to Odesk if you want something that's a little more technical or involves some more programming for the $50 to $100 range. Get her done. Go to Freelancer, WP Curve. If you need help with Google Analytics, Tweaky is a great place to go. Checklists, by the way, increase efficiency and help training. So if you engage somebody, a VA or a consultant or somebody, ask them to put together a checklist of what they did so that you can maybe use it on your own a little bit later. So
or even to get those people to repeat it again without all of the hassle and be consistent. Checklists are incredibly important.
Well, I use checklists all the time for things that I do all the time. Just because it helps you go through and get things done, and you don't miss a little step along the way. So some people will say, really, can I hire somebody that I can trust on line like this? And the hired help, they're motivated by good ratings, so they're not going to screw you up.
The last time I checked, I had done projects from, I think it was like, I know for sure it was 73 countries. So I've hired people from all over the world at $5, $10, $15, $20, $100 at a time.
Well, you should be doing a segment on that. We'll have to keep you in mind for NAMS 14, young man. So an assistant may be more experienced or cost-effective, freeing you up to work on what you specialize in, which is a message that I've heard from one Mr. David Perdue on more than one occasion. But that's the thing, right? If you're the owner of the website, you want to leverage what you're doing, and freeing you up for the things that you do best, or maybe even freeing you up just to have a little bit more personal time. So what's missing today, right? I think I've shared 5 good things with you. I hope that you would agree. But I would be looking at doing a website audit. I would be doing market research and competitive analysis, coming up with a plan. There are a lot of people who don't have a written plan. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. You need a content plan, an editorial calendar. You need to be trying different advertising techniques and measuring the success, looking at the KPIs in Google Analytics, Google Webmaster Tools, reviewing those analytics and revising. So the key takeaways today, I think you need to take charge with access to your domain, your hosting, your email, and the people working on your site. You need to be testing your systems and processes to make sure, because they sometimes fail for whatever reason. So you don't just test it once, test it on a regular basis. Revise your content, edit it, chunk the content, have great headlines and images that bring people in. Ask people to do something on the website. For a lot of people, just asking them to do something is a significant improvement. Find out where your prospects hang out and hang out with them. Communities are great. Buying traffic can be effective and quick. So you can discover what's working now in my website success course. Step-by-step training to make any website more profitable and easier to manage. It's a 30-week training course that teaches business owners and managers how to assess their website, revise it, improve it, operate it more efficiently or more effectively, learn how to attract more visitors, and then review the results and to make some changes and make the website more profitable and easier to manage. Systematize what you're doing, automate it, discover low-cost, qualified traffic sources, and I can show you that. Can you see that on the screen down at the bottom, or is this?
I can.
Covering. So nams.ws, and then it's Kurt Scholey and WSC.
NAMS.ws/Kurt Scholey WSC website success course is what that stands for, right? Okay.
Yeah. Kurt, KURTSCHOLLE slash
no slash.
Kurt Scholey WSC, right?
Yep.
So how to organize your website project, how to take control, create an effective plan, auditing your website, researching your market, organizing your site for clarity, attracting visitors, learning how to engage them, learning how to use free or inexpensive advertising, how to begin that dialogue, how to get people in a funnel, and to always have people who are moving through it. There are 10 weekly courses. There are 10 bonus lessons. It's $29 a month, which is very affordable. It goes for 7 months, and there is a money-back guarantee.
So that was 30 weekly courses.
Yes.
And 10 bonus lessons?
So it's a total of 40 lessons.
So basically, Kurt, what I see is a really strong course in fundamentals. I mean, to me, the fundamentals are key to making sure that always performs well.
Well, I think it's different than anything else on the market today. You know, you can buy how to do traffic or how to do email or whatever, but this is really designed to bring an entrepreneur, a solopreneur, an infopreneur up to speed and to know a little bit more about all the things that need to be done to improve the website. And I will guarantee that you will have a return on your investment, or I will happily give you your money back. But we've had people who have uh, found it, gone through it, maybe have been a little skeptical about it, but have absolutely seen some results, and that's what we have. Also, anybody who signs up today, we're going to add some weekly online training for free.
So I was going to ask you, when you talk about weekly online training, is that a way for people to actually submit questions and talk to you about these things along the way?
Yep. Yep.
Wow. So you're getting some coaching as well.
Yeah. So it's open. It's open line. So that's my gift to NAMS people. And out of the respect that I have for you and what I've learned at the NAMS conference, um, and plus I'm just toying with the idea of actually offering a paid version of that. But I think if anybody who wants to sign up for this in the next 7 days or so, we'll give them a link for free coaching. They can sign up, and also we'll make the archives available to them. So if they don't have a chance to ask their question, they can text it into us, send an email, or they can get online and ask the question. So I think, you know, you're going to have some people who are coming in at lesson number 7 and some that are coming in at lesson number 27, but I think everybody will learn from this. People really resonate to what we have, and I'm thankful for that. And I'm thankful for the opportunity to talk with you today.
Well, thank you so much for that. Tell them the website again. It was nams.ws/Kurt Scholle, WSC.
KurtSchollewsc.
That's it. Thank you very much for that, Kurt. That $29 is an awesome deal for this much fundamental coaching training.
It comes out to $203.
In 7 months of hand-holding. That's
yeah. And you know, some people want a quick start, and that's important. But I think it's more important to have the fundamentals, almost like you would go to a junior college to sign up for a course for something or other. This teaches you what you need to know to make your website more profitable and easier to manage.
Well, then you're going to love my new saying that is one of my favorites, and that is fundamentals fund the future. So there you go. Okay, go jump on this because Kurt's got it up for 7 days for the NAMS community. Love to have this done and love having you here, Kurt. Thank you so much for doing this for our folks.